and 12 or thereabouts, a bit older than you. And there was a cinema there, and of course, what you don't remember, or you wouldn't know, is that there was no lights at all. You know, when you're going anywhere, you've always got lights wherever you're going. This was not allowed during the war. All the lights were turned off at night time.
It's called blackout.
Dark everywhere. When you were in your house or in somebody else's house, if you had the lights on, and even if you had them, the curtains slightly drawn, someone would shout, "Put that light out!" There were people that went around the streets there and said, "You've got to put your lights out."
And why was that, Father? You didn't show the light?
They did that because they were afraid that German aircraft coming over would see lights and say there's people there that drop bombs. And there was another thing that I forgot to tell you too, that when you were at school, you used to have an organisation called the Royal Observer Corps. What they did, they came around to the schools with all their things to say, this is a Spitfire. They gave you the outline of the Spitfire. You can wave when you see that. This is a Messerschmitt. You do not wave, you duck.
Because that was the German.
Because that would be German.
This
is a Stuka. It's a German dive bomber. You can tell it by the dihedral on the wings. And you paid attention.
And the film. The film. Because it was dark.
Yeah.
The cat people.
Oh, the cat, yeah.
Oh,
that's it. This was when I was evacuated at Minehead, so I was 11 plus, probably about 12 or whatever. So we went to pictures to see this film called The Cat People. It was a horror film, where animals leapt out, or I think they leapt out of the trees and ate you.
People turned into
And of course, you had no lights at all. You were not allowed to shine any lights. Even the torches had to be very low thing. And you had to walk up, and there were all these trees and things that you looked, because I was in the country as it then was. And every time you heard the bushes, you know, it's one of these monsters that's going to jump out at me. So that's when it was like that. No lights at all, weren't allowed them. And one of the things too, when we did get back to London was exactly the same, no lights at all anywhere. Even cars, the lights, you didn't have any on there. All they had would be a screen on front, and there'd be a little cross where the lights were. All the traffic lights would not show lights. There would only be a little cross where they all were. You had to identify them. And where it got difficult was because all the lights went out there. If you were in November or somewhere like that, you had fog or smog as it then was, so you couldn't see the lamppost even if you were about 5 feet away from it. And there were no lights either. If you will see Auntie Reedy now, she's got a scar there on her head. And where Tottenham Court Road is, there used to be a shop there called Maples with these fancy things that...
Where that chair came from, George, we used to have in the living room, that chair.
They had
and she's got a scar there where she walked straight into the lamppost because she couldn't see anything there. No lights or anything. And that's what it's like being an evacuee. If you were living in somewhere like, shall we say, Arbroath or somewhere up in Scotland, this didn't affect you at all. It was mainly the big cities who shunted all the children out of there because they were a dangerous area.
Papa, what about, so we've talked about certain things. What about things of the time? So, for instance, you had the Blitz, so you had the bombers coming over.
That's
but
right.
Later in the war, there were different weapons you used,
that's right, yes.
Such as the V.
You were not evacuated from there because...
No, not used over UK, George. So, for instance, the V1 and V2, and you could hear...
Well, yeah.
And you knew which was which.
Yeah, but that's really not connected with what's evacuation.
But it's still an experience.
It was, yeah. Well, what happened was at school there was you had VE Day. Was it VE or D? No, D-Day, where everyone landed over in France to fight the war over there. But that's it. We're all going home now, which we did. But what the Germans did, they had vengeance weapons. And the first one was called V1. And this was a flying bomb. Of the flying bomb, it was called, we had various nicknames. The Americans who were over here at that time called it a doodle bug. It was also called a flying bomb. It was also called a buzz bomb. It always was the same. It was like an aeroplane with a bomb attached to it, and its object was it flew to where it was expected to land, and then the engine would cut out and down it would come and explode. And that was V1,
So
and it was
that
the
pilot's
pilot's plane, yeah.
And-
We
and-
didn't know what it was at first.
And the thing about it, when you could tell it was going to drop.
Oh yes, that's right, because when you heard the engine, it was going, then if you heard it, you knew that the engine had cut out. And it could either do one of two things. It could either go straight down like that, or because it had wings on it too, it could glide. It depended on what the weather was like. So you never knew quite, if you heard one of those, whether you were going to get bombed or whether it was going to drift on.
But
One of the things that we always remember is Auntie Renee and me, we went to pictures in this cinema there. At the cinema there, they would put on the screen, there is a flying bomb approaching. And then they would say, this flying bomb is overhead. So you had the option to stay there or out. So anyway, out we came at one of them there. And there it was, we heard it, and then we heard I mean, it was going to cut out. And what did we dive into? The worst place in the world. It was a cafe. There was glass all over the place, and there's nothing shatters worse than glass. So there we were. Boom! It went elsewhere though. But no, there again. That was another thing where evacuees had come back to something which wasn't all that pleasant. And that was more or less it.
What about taking shelter in London? Because you were born in London and because you weren't away from London the whole period of the war.
Again, that wasn't really evacuation, because when you came back there, there were phases there. The Germans used to bomb at all times, but then during the day they couldn't do it because the Royal Air Force used to shoot their planes down, and they said, no, we can't do that. So they resorted to bombing at night time alone when the Royal Air Force couldn't see them, so that's what happened then. So what we had to do was, instead of sleeping at home there, we had to sleep in the underground. So where we were, our grandmother, there's a picture of her somewhere or another, she would take blankets down to Warren Street Station, and you pass through there. And then we would go there, when nightfall, Rini and myself would go down there, and there would be their blankets waiting for, and then we would sleep on the platform.
Can you imagine that, George?
People
You'd probably enjoy that, wouldn't you?
People would sing. Would people sing and things?
And there'll be entertainment.
Not really.
Sit on the tracks.
No, it was really a bit too miserable an experience for people to sing.
It was quite warm down there as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. What's strange about it is I still remember, where I slept there, I could see this sign and I could still see it. It was a play that was going on. It was called Is Your Honeymoon Really Necessary? And the stars were Enid Stamp Taylor and Ralph Lee. And I can still remember that.
Funny, isn't it?
So yeah, going back to that, 1940 something or other.
So one of the experiences of being an evacuee, going back to being an evacuee, so when you went on a train, because we've seen the archival footage of all these children waving from trains.
Yeah.
So in order to establish who you are and where you're from, did you wear tags?
Yeah, everyone had a tag that they came from, showing Netley Street School, etc. And they were going to Luton, but that was as far as they got. They didn't know where you were going there.
No.
You would get off at Luton.
But it said where you're from and which general area you're heading to.
More or less, yeah, but they didn't quite know, because they didn't quite know what the accommodation was going to be like at the other end. It was really very difficult, wandering around the streets there with a whole, crocodile lying there with a teacher there, more or less supervising everything, knocking on doors and drink along. Will you take my evacuee?
Another question I think, George, maybe you might need to think about, perhaps, is when you were evacuated, because you weren't at your usual school, did you have to go into a school where you didn't have that many classmates that you used to know from your original school?
Yes, you did, because you went as a school and you've got a classroom who were the original class, so you're with your friends there as well. So it wasn't all that hardship.
But I mean, I suppose one of the questions is, was it quite difficult to get on with the lessons because you didn't have your regular teacher that you had when you were in London?
No, there was no problem there at all.
Okay.
The only thing that really appetised me was my thieving.
The what?
Thieving. What? Well, I used to go into places like Woolworths and steal things.